is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and today I'm doing a no run-through review for Ant-Man, which is the newest hero for Marvel Champions. And I gotta say, Ant-Man is so fucking awesome. Like, he is so much fun to play. Probably out of everyone that has come out, he is probably the most complex, and not in a bad way. And I wouldn't even really use, complex for lack of a better term, just because he has 3 phases. Now, this is really cool, but also really, really shitty, and I'll explain why. It's mainly shitty in the terms of the physical aspect of the 3 forms and what they decided to do with it. But in the game, in terms of game mechanics, it is so much fun. So, as you can see, there is Ant-Man on one of the forms, and then you have Scott Lang. So you have your alter ego. So your alter ego is that, and then your other side is Ant-Man whenever he is tiny, and then you can open up the card, and now you have Ant-Man when he's a giant. So you have your 3 forms. Now this is so cool because it's just the 3 forms, and here's what the 3 forms do. And whenever you switch to them, so when you switch to Lang, he heals 1, just naturally, just swapping, and he has 3 recovery. Not horrible. He has 12 hit points. You know, that's not a lot, but it's not the lowest, I think. I don't think it's the lowest. Then, when you swap to Ant-Man, the tiny version, he gets to remove a thwart, a threat from any scheme. Then, he has, whenever he's in tiny, he has higher thwart, no attack, and decent defense. And whenever you swap to giant Ant-Man, you get to deal a damage to an enemy. He has 1 thwart, 3 attack, and 3 defense. So he is all around, he is the best hero for everything. And you might be thinking, oh, does that mean you can swap to each form once? No, you can still only do one change, swap, so you can't swap to your tiny one and then later on that same round swap to giant. You have to pick who you're going to. So that's what I mean by him being complex, is that you have to be able to understand the cards in your deck. That's gonna depend on whether or not you're tiny or giant or an alter ego. So you have to keep that in mind, as well as when you want to swap, because normally because you can swap from giant to tiny. To tiny Ant-Man, but then you won't be able to swap to your alter ego. So that's actually two more ways for the hero to actually attack you, and you don't have that much hit points to begin with. Now, it also gives you versatility in your hand management, because whenever you're in alter ego, you get 6. When you're in tiny, you get 5, and when you're in giant, you get 4. So you have to manage your hand 1 more time than you normally would. But I gotta say, this is just so much fun to decide what to do and to thematically represent Ant-Man whenever he's in tiny mode or he's in giant. Now, here's what I mean by it being shitty. I don't like this 1 card. I think aesthetically it looks kind of cool because it's a big card, but here's the problem, is I feel like over time, 1, you can't really sleeve this because, sorry, let me get that to focus again. You can't really sleeve it because you have to open it up. And I feel like over time, opening this back and forth is slowly going to wear that away. I really wish they would have just printed a big card and have that to the side instead of, and then just keep the 1 card like this. To where it's just Ant-Man and then Scott Lang on the one side, like with everyone else. I just feel like the giant version is just, while it's cool, whenever you're in other versions, then you just have your alter ego just kind of open like that, because it won't stay shut, and there's no way to actually, besides taping it. So I think mechanically it's just kind of really annoying, and it's probably going to wear out and just get destroyed down the line. But that's that. However, now let's take a look at some of the cards that's in his deck that make him really, really cool. So, in terms of equipment, that he has, he doesn't have a whole lot, like upgrades and items. He has his Ant-Man's helmet, which there's a response for, so he doesn't have a whole lot of upgrades that you have to actually exhaust to use. They just happen, which is really, really good. But his helmet will allow you to, when you change to giant form, you heal 2 damage, and then whenever you change to your tiny form, you draw a card. So you have, you're hardly really ever, at least in my experience, you're hardly ever Scott Lang. You're only Scott Lang when you don't want the enemy to attack you because, I mean, you still have to be able to swap, like, you can't be in giant form and then use your helmet to be able to heal, you know? So you would have to be in your Scott Lang or Tiny Ant-Man to then swap to heal, besides having to go and actually spend time to recover. But this is really cool because something's going to happen each time you're swapping into one of the hero forms. So that's awesome. Next, same thing. You have, these are actual actions with the wrist gauntlets. So if you're in your giant form, you can spend 2 physical resources to stun an enemy, and then if you're in tiny form, then you can spend 2 of the lightning bolt resources to actually confuse an enemy. So you have multiple ways to actually give status cards to enemies, which is fantastic. And I mean, 3 is not the most expensive out there, but it's still something worth getting out. And then, oh no, he fell. And then the gauntlets are just great. Then you have other ways for him to attack, and there's a few of these in here. This is one of my favorites that's just kind of funny. You have Army of Ants, and basically you just exhaust that if you're in tiny form to deal damage to an enemy. So you just have your Army of Ants, and there's actually multiples of those, so you can have like 2 of them, so there's just 2 damage if you're in tiny form. So then Tiny Ant-Man, he technically has 3 damage now. It's the ants and himself fighting. So you have that. Then, if you have multiples of those out and you're in tiny form, you can play Hive Mind. Now, Hive Mind lets you remove 2 threat and +1 for each additional Army of Ants card that you have out. So that could be an additional 4 threat getting removed by using the ants. So that's fantastic. So you have lots of ways to remove threat in tiny form. And he gets put with the leadership trait, the leadership cards, and I feel they actually worked pretty well, especially for his pre-built deck, because he comes with regular Ant-Man, and he's free, but he comes in with Pim Particles, which are basically his health, so however much you want to pay for him, that's how long he's going to stay out, and he's a 2 threat to, or 2 thwart to attack, so that's not nothing. And then there's also, of course, let's see. I'm literally trying to find her. There she is, right there. There is Wasp. Now, Ant-Man is actually the first part of what they're going to be doing, like a team-up cycle. So the next one that I believe is coming out is actually the Wasp. So there are cards that have team-up as a keyword on them that basically they can only go in this deck if you if you have that, one of those people, in the title. So for example, there's a card in here called, where is it? It is, you think I'd have it right. Oh, Swarm Tactics right here. So team up Ant-Man and Wasp, and you can change to your other hero form and ready your hero. So, but you can only have this in your deck if you're Ant-Man or Wasp, and you can only play this card if both of them are out. So technically, right now, this card is useless. But to be able, and it would be further be useless if you only had Ant-Man and, let's say, the Hulk. You were playing with both of them. To be able to utilize the Swarm Tactics, you would have to have Ant-Man and Wasp out at the same time. But still, that's pretty cool, because then you can change to your other hero form and then ready your hero, which is really good. So, in terms of the response, like the tiny Ant-Man, fantastic. Like his hit points, luckily the hit points don't change as you, that would just be a little bit more complex. But you have multiple ways to actually remove threat as him. But that's pretty much all you're going to be doing. Then, well, I guess if you have the Army of Ants, you can do a little bit more damage. Oh yeah, I was talking about Wasp. So Wasp is pretty cool because when she comes in, it depends on which form you're in. If you're in Giant, then she deals 2 damage to an enemy. If you're in Tiny form, then she removes 2 threats, so she kind of does a little boost. And she's a 2/2 as well, so those are that. Then, for Giant form, let's move these over. You have Giant Strength. When you change to your Giant form, you get +1 attack. So, and he already has 3 attacks, so that's 4 damage right there. Then you have, where is it? I could have sworn I grabbed it. Nope, it's right here. There is a big, well, actually, there's a leadership card called Moxie, which whenever you change form, you get +1 thwart, +1 attack, and +1 defense until the end of the round. So that's ways for you, and it's free. So that's ways for you to get more damage out there. Then you have this sexy ass card, only when you're in Giant form, called Giant Stomp. So this is, of course, every hero has their big attack. This is Ant-Man's. So a Giant Stomp deals 1 damage to each minion and 8 damage to an enemy. So 8 damage, that's a lot. So, and he has a few of those in here, so he can do quite a bit of damage. If you're playing the correct combination, you can play, you can deal 8 damage plus your 3 +1 if you play Moxie. So you can deal a potential of 12 damage right off the bat when you get to attack. So, here's my favorite combo with this deck. And that is coming from this card, Resize. Change to your other hero form and draw a card. Now the way I'm playing it is this is not you willingly changing to to your other form. This is an action card that's causing you to do that. So I don't think this counts as your one-time use. I could be wrong here, but I'm just reviewing Ant-Man. I'm not explaining how to play the game. But in my own theory, you can have, because there's multiple resizes in here. I want to say there's 2. Yeah, there might just be the 2. But whenever you're playing with these, and actually there's a lot of free cards in here, but when you're playing, you can play a resize to swap to your Tiny Ant-Man to remove threat whenever you swap to him, and then plus whatever other cards you have out for that. Then you can attack with your army of ants, and then so you remove a threat, you can deal 2 damage. Then you can, and you also draw a card with this resize card. And then you can play Resize again to then swap to your Giant form to then deal a damage to someone. And then, let's say you happen to have one other card in your hand and like a Giant and a Strength. So then you can play your Giant Stomp, because if you have a hand of 5 cards, there you go. So then you can deal 8 damage. And then also, if you have your helmet out, then after changing, you're also healing. And you're also drawing more cards if you're swapping back and forth with your helmet out. And then, if you happen to have, let's say you don't do your Giant Stomp, if you happen to have your, if Wasp is out, then you can play your, the Team Up card that lets you then, so let's say you attack with him, then you can play the Team Up card, or the Swarm Tactics, which then allow you to swap and ready him. So then you can swap to Ant-Man, remove some threat, and then you can exhaust. Or then on your turn, you can willingly change, like as part of your action, then go back. So then you're removing threat, and then you can attack again. And since he's readied, you can attack again. And if you have your Giant Strength out, when you change, you get +1 attack till the end of the turn. So I don't even know if that stacks, if this is even allowed. But that's how it makes sense to me. So, if all that is true, that is so much fun. That is a fun way to play this game. That it gives you more to do with your actual character and doing a bunch more combos, swapping between different forms. It's like, okay, so I'm a boop, and I'm gonna be tiny, so I can thwart some of the schemes, and then I need to attack the main guy. So then boom, I'm gonna come into Giant Ant-Man. I'm gonna do my Giant Stomp for 8 damage, plus I'm gonna attack him for 3, 4, 8. 12 damage. And I'm going to play, I'm going to swap back to Tiny Ant-Man and then remove some more thwart. And I'm going to willingly change, play Swarm Tactics. That changes me to Ant-Man, so then I can now attack again and ready him. So if this stacks, then that would be 3, 4, 5. So I can deal 5 damage. So, and then, if you willingly want to change and be like, okay, after all that, I'm going to go ahead and swap to Scott Lang, and then he's not going to attack me back. This is so much fun. Like, I had an absolute blast just playing with the different abilities and min-maxing on the tiny form and then the giant form. He's like, I'm so excited in the direction that they're gonna go between with these characters. They're starting to get a little bit more creative, making them a little bit more complex, but not too much. I think with Doctor Strange, that's kind of where they started, because he had his own side deck of like the spells that he can use, and a lot of cards mess with those. Here, a lot of the cards are allowing you to change between your tiny form and then your giant form. I just don't like the actual way they went around making that. I really wish they could have just easily had this as like a side thing. Kind of like in Magic the Gathering cards where they have like the big commander cards. That easily could have been this on its own, and you would have just had to swap them back and forth. Like, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. I get that they wanted to still be the one card, but I feel like this is gonna wear down over time. But I could be wrong. I mean, maybe they play tested enough, and that's just what it is. You're just gonna have to deal with this, this just sitting there like that, open, regardless of what form you're in. But I mean, other than that, he's so much fun. He is probably one of my favorite heroes to come out, just because, and I'm not even like the biggest Ant-Man fan. Like I say in almost every one of my Marvel Champions videos, all my knowledge is coming from the movies. Of course, Paul Rudd was fantastic as Ant-Man. He made him cool. Every one of those actors made some of the heroes cool. But yeah, I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna have to give Ant-Man like a 9. Like, he is just an probably like a 9.5. Honestly, he was an absolute blast. Now, that ranking is based on if you can actually spend multiple resizes to swap back and forth, which, the way I understand the game, I believe you can. You just have because it's like, whenever it's like on the player aid, it says, play cards. That's what I'm doing, is you're playing cards. And then as a separate action, you can actually manually swap to a different form. So that's the way I do it. So he's probably 9.5. With that, he would be a little lower if you can't do that, but I don't think I'm wrong here. So that's it, everyone. That's my thoughts on Ant-Man, the newest hero for Marvel Champions. Let me know what you think of him in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.